my name is Ivy Lewis. I am a senior at University of Maryland College Park. I am a avian and animal science major, and I have a guest here today to talk about what a career would be in the horse industry. This could be applied to any animal industry, but specifically the application of this video will be used for people curious about the horse industry.
Oh, and hi, my name is Dr. Gloria McFadden, and I work for USDA APHIS Animal Care, and I am a veterinary medical officer that does inspections and work for an agency that enforces the Animal Welfare Act as well as the Horse Protection Act.
Okay, so what is an average day in or at your job?
So on an average day, I would probably go out and do an inspection. My territory covers zoos as well as research facilities. I do have some dealers that that breed like hedgehogs or sugar gliders.
Oh.
I do have one camel breeder.
Wow.
So it just depends on people's territory. But for me, I would go out to do an inspection. I generally will start my day at 9 a.m. Try to get to a place around 10. Don't want to get there too early, give them a chance to clean up and check on sick animals, that type of thing. And then after the inspection, we do have to do reports.
Okay.
And they can be done on site, or we can come home, type it up, and then email it to them. And then that report goes into a database.
Is there really any limit to what type of animal that you would see?
No limit. In my territory, because I have different types of people that are licensed, I see everything. But some people may have territories where all they see are dogs, or all they see are guinea pigs. It just depends on your territory. Some, all they have are research facilities.
Okay.
So it just depends on where they're located and what's in that territory.
What is something that is really challenging about your job?
What's challenging sometimes is when regulation is sometimes rigid, and you have a facility who is trying to do the right thing, but may not have the funds to do the right thing, and needs additional help, and then trying to balance what the regulation says versus what they're able to do. And sometimes, they may not be able to meet those regulations, and they'll end up getting fines and that type of thing. Not that the animals are in any distress, it's more that, they can't build the most beautiful facilities.
Right.
Or maybe can't keep up with the maintenance of the facilities. That's always the biggest challenge for me.
In that case, when you have a facility that just is really struggling and you see they're trying and maybe they're not quite getting it, who would you refer them to?
So we do have a compliance team. And so when things get a little challenging, this group of people and they're located in our Animal Welfare Center, which is out in Fort Collins, Maryland. Fort Collins, Colorado. And they will actually come out and try to talk to the person, give them different perspectives. Sometimes it may be a suggestion that maybe they have too many animals, maybe reducing the number of animals. It is totally voluntary on the part of the person that's licensed, so they do not have to have that discussion. I've had to use that, and it was helpful for that owner. He got a new perspective on things and thought about ways of generating more money, so that he can do more. So it's generally a positive experience. It's not usually designed to be negative or to punish them.
Yeah, I would imagine it can be a bit overwhelming for maybe a farmer or somebody who is a zookeeper who may not exactly know every individual regulation. Because it gets pretty expensive. I took a regulatory class about a year ago, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot to kind of
digest.
Yeah.
Yes, because even as an inspector, I would have to go back and check regulations, especially if it's something I don't generally see.
And I'm not sure, but are they constantly changing the regulations? I would imagine so.
So we we don't make many changes.
Mm,
So that doesn't change. It's just the way our regulations are written. They're very vague. So the
mm,
interpretation of them may change over the years, but the actual regs do not. We've had made some major changes that are going into effect this year regarding dogs. Previously, our regulations talked about dogs should be offered water twice a day for an hour. Um,
okay.
yeah, so now it's going to be they should have water all the time. So that's a recent change. Also changing the requirements for the veterinarian. They still need a veterinarian, but before
Mm,
we just left it up to the vet what needed to be done. Now we're being more specific. You know, there has to be a vaccination program. There has to be a deworming program, and that has to be in writing and defined. So this is like a different year, and usually it's not many changes.
yeah, I was going to ask, how has COVID affected,
Oh,
everything?
COVID.
Just throwing everything on its head.
It really did. We actually haven't been, we didn't start inspecting again until maybe a month ago.
Mm,
We went off inspections unless it was something egregious, like we got word that there was some serious animal welfare issues somewhere. And those
yeah,
were the only inspections that actually got done, which was very few. Where if the animals need to be confiscated or if animals were not getting fed and that kind of stuff. So that one was bad, so someone had to go out. But other than that, we haven't. We did start back as like counties in different states are cleared, so-called cleared.
right.
And so some people have gone back, but we do have to mask up, wear shields and shoe covers and gloves
Yeah,
and spray everything and keep a bag in the car to put everything in. We got to change between facilities. So it's a different process. I haven't had to do it yet because for the most part, Maryland has not had green counties. So,
Ooh.
so,
Uh-oh.
and DC became green this week, but
Mm-hmm.
all I have in DC are research facilities. And about a month ago, we were given the okay to do the research inspections virtually and just look at records. And so
Okay.
so I'm already done with those. So now that it's green, but I didn't have anything else but research in DC. So.
Okay, I see. I was wondering, would there be some sort of way to inspect a facility virtually? Maybe they would have the owners of the facility take a video and then send it to you guys.
And we have done that with what we call pre-license inspections. So these are
Hmm.
people who submitted an application to be licensed. I actually have one. He wants to be licensed to sell dogs. And in the initial process, we do a phone call and ask 100 questions, but he
Hmm.
also submitted a video of his facilities, and which was very helpful. And he was really good at, he had a good camera too. So so and he had a great setup. So just seeing that, and then I could ask more questions based on what I see. Um, I really think he is ready to be licensed, and so we just got to finish that process. One was he had to have a vet, which he has, but the vet does not want to work with the government, so he has
Okay.
to find a new vet. So that's what's the tie up now. But yeah, the virtual thing is showing videos. Um, it's harder doing it with the exhibitors and your zoos,
Hmm.
but I know people have done it. Um, it's just harder getting a good visual.
Yeah, that's true. I guess a big question I have would be, what sort of training would be required to be an inspector? I know you're a veterinarian. Is that normally the traditional route, or what made you go from being a veterinarian to getting into the field with USDA?
So with animal care, so I started out as I worked in research prior to coming to the USDA, and I enjoyed the work, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. And I
Hmm.
knew about this job as a veterinary medical officer with animal care from an externship, and it was the only job I wanted in the government. So when it opened up, I went for it. because I do like animal welfare. I like for people to know how to take proper care of animals, and that's always been my passion.
Mm.
And so I felt that this was the perfect job. Um, you don't necessarily have to be a veterinarian to be an inspector for animal care. You could have a background in biology. You could have worked in the field for a number of years. We even have some people that had a chemistry art background.
Wow.
um,
Chemistry
but as
art.
long as you have some knowledge of animals and you have done something with them, maybe something significant, um, you can qualify to be an inspector. Generally, most of us are veterinary medical officers, and we do have others that they are called animal care inspectors. The veterinarians do all of the research inspections.
Okay.
Yeah, so the animal care inspectors can do everything else except research. That's the only
Interesting.
difference.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
only difference. So if an animal care inspector was on the inspection and it was a veterinary issue and they really weren't familiar with, they can call on a veterinarian to assist with them. They can come out or they can talk on the phone. And if it's really bad, the veterinarian will come out to address. So that's how it
Okay.
works. Yeah.
I see.
Varied backgrounds, varied backgrounds.
In the field, what are some of the biggest red flags when going to inspect an animal or a facility?
So the biggest red flag is if I get there and it looks like animals haven't been fed,
Yeah.
or I can't find anybody. It looks like they hadn't been there in a while. I
Mm.
really have been blessed. I hadn't had any really bad facilities, but I guess the one facility that I had, and it would have been settled, but the red flag was when I went and it was cooler temperatures, almost winter, and spider monkey and some tamarins were actually outside.
Oh no.
And it was just the one spider monkey because they had others. And when I asked, um, why is this animal outside and all the other ones are inside? And the response was, it's not my fault. He's a dumb monkey and won't go in his nest box. So at that point, I said, okay, her thought way of thinking is not good.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't a good answer as to why he was still outside, and he should have been inside because the temperatures were way too cold for a spider monkey, and it did result in him getting frostbite. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so and that way of thinking continued and led to
yeah.
other issues because she just didn't seem to think it was a problem having animals that aren't acclimated to cold weather being outside. And so that was a red flag. Maybe I even called my boss because I said that was not a good response, and I think I might have problems, and I did. So
Yeah, it's the way that she thinks about maybe not even just spider monkeys, but maybe animals in general.
in general, yes,
Yeah.
and that became very clear. That was one of the few facilities that we did have to open up a case
Oh,
and
wow.
go through
Oh,
the process. So, because yeah, that one day, I didn't think it would get as bad as it did, but it was definitely a red flag because of how she responded. Her answer to my question was.
yeah, I suppose in a way, the humans that are behind running things are also kind of being inspected as well in a way. Like, are you really qualified to be taking care of these animals?
Yes, like what is your way of thinking? Because we don't have
Mhm.
regulations about maybe not the best managers. So in the regulations, it has to be how the situation affects the animal. So you can't write up the person.
On a more lighter note, what's something really rewarding about being an inspector?
Well, there are two things. I just love seeing all the different animals. Because
Yeah.
originally I wanted to be a zoo veterinarian. So how I got into research, I don't even know. But so I like being able to go to the zoo and seeing all kinds of different species. But what I do truly enjoy is when I have a facility that really we have a great working relationship that they will call, ask questions because they have changed their way of thinking and always
Mm.
want to do the best for those animals. And that's always rewarding to see when they have achieved that and they're excited, or excited to show me what they came up with.
Mm.
Yeah, so that part I find rewarding.
Yes, developing a relationship between, um, I guess, the inspector and the animal care provider or whoever it may be. That's also really important as
Yeah,
well.
it's been very important.
Okay, I'm just looking through my questions, so I don't want to be
Yeah.
redundant in the questions. Let's see. Do you know of any jobs similar to being or relating to being a inspector?
So a lot of the inspectors that come to animal care as veterinarians were inspectors for Food Safety and Inspection Service, or
Hmm.
FSIS, where that's where the slaughter plants are.
Right.
Yeah, so mostly chickens and pigs, um, and a lot of, you can do that for a while, but I think it does take a toll over time, and they look for
Yeah.
something different. You can also be an inspector with veterinary services, and they usually come on board for disease outbreaks, or
Okay.
they go to farms when that have food animals they raise for food, and they
Mm-hmm.
go out and to make sure they're following those regulations. So that's
Right.
under veterinary services. Um, there's so many within the government anyway. You can also, of course, go into practice. And sometimes it may not be your forte to work with the animals, and some people may actually go into the lab and be veterinary pathologists, where they, so like the autopsy guy or person or
Right.
woman. Yeah. So it as a veterinarian you can do so much, and even as someone who doesn't have a veterinary degree and wants
Mm-hmm.
a career in animals, there are still a lot of options. There's not just practice work. In the research field, they do have animal caretakers. Some of the people work in cage wise, some become technicians, and some even become managers. And you don't have to be a vet to do that. You can also, well, big thing these days is the doggy daycare. So,
That's a lot of fun.
people have actually opened up businesses and making big bucks doing that.
Yeah.
So there are always other options. It's actually a whole list. I couldn't even possibly go through it.
Right. I had meant to mention because other people may also kind of experience this. I was studying veterinary medicine for 2.5 years, and thought, oh, maybe that's not quite the path for me.
Hmm.
And so I'm now in animal care and management within the animal science major, and I thought, what am I going to do with just an animal science degree, me being ignorant because I thought, oh,
Yeah.
being a veterinarian is the only thing.
No,
And
not at all.
with me taking the regulatory class that I took a year ago, I learned so much about what you can do to kind of climb your way up through maybe the career that you want, working with
Yeah.
the government. Um, so there's a lot of different pathways to take. So I'm glad you had mentioned that the list goes on and on.
On and on. Because you may find you like being in the lab working on a project studying mastitis in cows. So
Right, yeah.
you don't have to
It's
be a
so
vet.
much.
You don't have to be a vet. So
Let's see. I hope I have time for maybe at least two more questions. I'm not sure.
oh,
Um, so one of the questions would be, what would an average salary be like starting out in the field versus maybe if you were to stay in for a while and kind of get promotions?
promotion. And it actually depends on what you're doing as a vet. Um, I know I graduated in 94. So the salaries were actually pretty low during that time,
Mm.
usually about 32,000 to
Oh, wow.
40,000. It was very low. I know that has increased for new graduates. I think they come out now around the 66,000. Um, and it really does depend on what you're going to do. Now, when I came into animal care was in 2002,
Okay.
and the salaries were still kind of low. And if you didn't have a year of experience doing that particular job, they kind of wanted to drop you down a grade.
Okay.
So even though this position only is a GS 12, they you had to come in as an 11. and then after a year, they will put you up to the 12. So that,
Okay.
yeah, so that made you start out a little low, and during that time, that was probably around 45 or 50,000. Um, Now I've been doing this now for almost 19 years.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I can't believe it myself. And 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 my salary has finally gotten to like over 100,000. But
Okay.
with the government, they have different tiers. Now, if I had stayed in research, I could have doubled my salary.
Oh, in
So
research.
that's what I say, the
Wow.
field determines the salary kind of. So research, they do pay more, especially if you're board certified. Um,
Mm,
and but you just have to find your niche. There's a lot
right.
more to doing working in research. Longer hours, weekends, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Ooh.
you have to wait, because even after I started this job, um, one of my places that I actually inspected actually asked me if I would apply for their open position for a vet. And I thought about it, and I said, no, 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 I don't think I want to go back into that. And
Mhm.
but then they told me the salary was 145,000, and I said, oh well, let
Well,
me
maybe.
have that again. But in the
That's
end, I kept thinking about, commuting and the traffic and
yeah.
the things that I didn't like about when I was doing it, and this job was way more rewarding. So yeah, it just depends. It depends on what you're going to do in the field. Yeah.
Right. That's very true. There's also there's a lot of growth and opportunities within the government or even outside of the government as well. And I feel like people find it taboo to talk about salaries sometimes.
Yes, they always do. Like,
Just
I
like, I
don't
need to
care.
know. Yes,
I don't care.
I appreciate that. My last question would be, how many hours do you spend a week doing this job? I know you had mentioned with research, it's pretty long, but not being in research, is it less?
Yeah, it's a straight 40 hours. So we're on what we
Okay.
call first 40. So, and because you can go on an inspection and then something will be wrong, and your day will end up being more a 10 or 12-hour day. But
Mm,
any given week, once you hit 40 hours, we supposed to stop working. So if you hit 40 hours on Wednesday, then you stop working. Or if you
you
hit on
stop working on
Thursday,
Wednesday.
you don't want to work. Well, I said, but there are times when you may have to go over your hours, because
Okay.
something is going on, and they don't generally pay us overtime, but they allow us to have comp time.
Oh, sorry. What is
Yeah, so
comp time?
so comp time is like they'll take those hours and basically accompany it to you. You have it, and then one day you're gonna use it like leave, basically, but you'll
Okay.
get paid. Yeah, you'll get paid. But you have to use it before a certain time frame, or you'll lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, you know, for the most part, I don't get much comp time because I don't have to drive very far for a lot of my facilities. Some inspectors may have an 8-hour drive to get to a facility.
Whew.
It depends, like out west, because there's a lot more land, space. So they will probably end up getting some comp time because they had to make this long drive. They usually will stay on overnight, but when they get to their location, they may have several places they can inspect in that area.
That's
And
the
rather
great.
than
I'm sorry.
yeah, and then rather than them like driving back and forth, they get a lot done. So they may work longer than the 40 hours to make sure they got it done and don't have to come back for a while.
Yeah, that's also nice,
Yeah, there's
That's the
flexibility.
great thing about Maryland is that a lot of I find it to be kind of like the hub of a lot of different types of jobs.
Yes,
So with the USDA and all the branches that come along with the USDA, a lot of the headquarters are here in Maryland.
they are here in Maryland. That is so
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
uh,
that is so
that's
true.
something to consider.
A lot of options here.
Yeah, there are a lot of options here. It's something to consider when maybe moving here or moving away.
Yes, yes.
Well, I could ask so many more questions, but I think that concludes the interview. I want to thank you again for taking the time to meet with me and answer these questions.
Oh, well, thank you for thinking of me. I
Yeah,
actually enjoyed this.
yeah, it's my first time doing an interview, and I hope that this video has been helpful for people who will see it eventually. Um, Maybe upcoming college freshmen or people who have already graduated and they're like, what am I gonna do with
Oh, okay.
myself? So
I like that. Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you.